Right.
We're going to talk to Jeremy. His name, that's his Tongan name.
Right.
His name's Harold the H. Cock-a-doodle-doo. And Harold Peacock is going to talk about we were the colonial champions.
Yes.
Ipswich played the South Melbourne Swans back in 1890. Tell us the story. This is very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, Danny. Look, it should have been reported last week with the AFL Grand Final, so apologies to Rugby League Sports.
And you were there?
AFL story.
You were there?
I was down there in Melbourne. Yes, I was there supporting Queensland.
Yeah,
I always will support Queensland.
Someone who was near Harold, sitting in the stalls, said all he did was there go, "We are the pride of Brisbane town.
We are Frenchy. We're the French." Now,
yeah, that was me, non-stop. In fact, for probably about 24 hours afterwards.
How was the voice?
Oh, well, it was a bit rough. I was, as you know, Damo, I had trouble coming up for Tuesday for Toowoomba, so
Can I just quickly, because we've got time as the essence, but I got a lot of respect for Chris Fagan, and he was losing for many, many seasons, and they stuck by him, the board. You got to admire the board, not like the Broncos board that seemed to flick everybody that's got any loyalty to the joint. But yeah, so congratulations to Chris Fagan, and he was walking around with the trophy the other day with the towel over it, so he wanted to show someone up in the shopping centre there at Morningside, but he bumped into Hayley Lewis, who's got a shop there, and got a picture with it. But he's quite a gentleman, so good on you there, Fags, or Fags.
Yeah, look, he's everyone's favourite grandfather as well, so congratulations to him. But there should have been, I don't know whether he was there, but back in 1890, that was a game of colonial champions that should have been reported during the week. You see, if you think that Fagan's Brisbane Lions was the first Queensland team to play Sydney or South Melbourne Swans for an Australian football title, you would be wrong. Now, back in 1890, South Melbourne were the undefeated colonial champions of Victoria. And the team boasted the likes of Captain Sonny Elms, said to be the best fullback in the game, and Peter Burns, who was probably the best Australian rules footballer of the 19th century. And then there was Edgar Barrett, who was the leading goal kicker in Victoria that year. And they all came up here to Queensland to take on our best. Now, the day before South Melbourne team departed for their Queensland tour, they smashed Geelong by 9 goals. So Ipswich up here were expected to be complete underdogs against the Southern champions. Now, while South Melbourne were the colonial champions of Victoria, like you said, Danny, Ipswich were the champions of Queensland.
Exactly.
And so the match was the most hyped football game in the history of Queensland, and it brought together the two champion team. So it really was a grand final of sorts. Now, 2 days before the clash, South Melbourne warmed up by playing Brisbane at the Breakfast Creek Sports Ground, which is where the Albion Park Paceway is today.
So the Brisbane Aussie rules team.
Yeah, that's right, and that was before the. That was a warm-up game because the Ipswich, they were the champions. That was the main game of the tour.
Everything.
Yeah, and look, that Brisbane, the Brisbane Football Club, that Brisbane team that year, they were led by former Ipswich and South Melbourne star Jack Gibson.
Oh, Jack!
But South Melbourne still smashed them by 11 goals. Now, the big Ipswich versus South Melbourne game was set down for Monday, the 23rd of June, 1890, at the North Ipswich Reserve, and it was to start at 3:30 p.m. sharp. Now, the South Melbourne team was formally welcomed to Ipswich by the president of the Ipswich Football Club and member of Queensland Parliament for Ipswich, Mr. Andrew Barlow. And it was his sister-in-law today actually haunts the Hamilton and Alexandra College in country Victoria. There was also the mayor of Ipswich, Peter Brown, who of course named... Yeah, well, he named Browns Park after himself.
Of course.
And there were also all the other members of Parliament living in Ipswich. In fact, everyone who was anyone was at the game. That's why I thought...
Where was it?
That was at the North Ipswich Reserves, at the grounds on the north side of the river there.
In 1890?
1890, yep. Now, this game was so big, the Fassifern and Esk trains were delayed by an hour to allow the large number of country spectators to see the whole match.
Wow.
Yeah, Ipswich's Excelsior Band was there playing popular tunes. the day was even declared a public holiday. It was definitely a red-letter day in the annals of the Ipswich Football Club. Now, the champion Ipswich Blue and Blacks were led by the popular captain Steve Welsh, who also captained Queensland, and his father-in-law today haunts the Metropole Hotel in Ipswich. Now, Welsh's team, they believe they had the talent to seriously challenge the Victorian champions. 3,000 people paid to get into the game, and many more watched from free vantage points like in trees and hills around the ground. Ipswich surprised the visitors with their enthusiasm and skill and trailed by just 2 goals at half-time.
Wow.
Now, South Melbourne, they put the foot down in that championship third quarter to open up a big lead. Ipswich came back and won the final quarter, but went down by just 5 goals.
Wow.
The final score being 10 goals 16, behind to 5 goals 5. It was a good performance, especially when you consider how well South Melbourne were beating every other team in Australia. Now, the South Melbourne champions congratulated Ipswich for an outstanding game. Now, the best for Ipswich was Adolf Hazenkamp, who later became a Mackay alderman and for a while was acting mayor.
Wow.
Now, a couple of days later, South Melbourne faced a Queensland representative team led by Ipswich captain Welsh, but the main game of the two had already been played, and that was at Ipswich. So even though the Brisbane Lions played Sydney or South Melbourne in the AFL Grand Final last weekend, Danny, the first champion team from Queensland to play South Melbourne for a colonial grand final of sorts was the Ipswich Football Club 134 years ago in 1890.
Let's chant it.
Piece of history.
We are the pride of Ipswich Town. We are the boys in red and blue, black and blue. And again, we go on North Ipswich Oval and flog those Southerners like into... Anyhow, so how do we find that story and many others there, Harold?
Yeah, you can go online to historyouthere.com. There's about 300 Ipswich stories there, about 400 short stories there you can get. But absolutely, Ipswich Football Club, they were the first. Let's support them.
Mate, that story should be in the Courier Mail tomorrow or the Sunday Mail. That's a great
I was stunned that wasn't reported last week in the build-up to that game.
They wouldn't have a clue. They're Southerners. They come from the South. They don't care about us. We're not important to them. But we touched them up in the final by 60 points. So cop that, you swan bludgers. Anyhow, we'll get back to the radio program. It's 8:20. Thanks a lot, Harold. HistoryOutThere.com, 8:20. You're on West Bremer Radio.